There's very good scientific evidence that lead poisoning leads to a lot of neurological deficits. Neurological deficits coupled with adverse childhood experiences and trauma really lead to impaired cognitive development and impaired brain functions. I'm working on a case for resentencing similar to so many of the cases of juveniles that were 13, 14, and 15 and were involved with, just sad circumstances of usually being involved with other kids and even grown-ups that led them astray, and they ended up in a homicide charge, either killing someone or being with other people who killed someone, or just very tragic. I'm the director of the Juvenile Life Resentencing Program, people that were sentenced as juveniles in adult court to life sentences or constructive life sentences. We're in the process of having them resentenced now, reviewing their cases for resentencing. And the client that I'm working on now that I believe you're asking about, that client, just phenomenally sad, tragic childhood, what are called adverse childhood experiences. He has 2 life sentences, and so we're hoping, and just as many of my clients do, I mean, they're either life or constructive life, and many of them have 2 or 3 consecutive life sentences. So really no hope for release, and that's what the United States Supreme Court has said. You can't judge somebody's entire life on something that happened when they were 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, because of all of these factors that we must look at to see what made them do this, why were they involved in this crime, how did they end up there. Cognitive deficits can arise from a number of sources. I mean, adverse childhood experiences, childhood trauma, toxicity, outside chemical influences, and when all of those combine, it affects the development of a child's brain. The brain architecture can be seen by a scan, and you can see in extreme cases of toxic poisoning where there are portions of the brain that are less developed than they should be. I mean, there are schoolyards and playgrounds that are fenced off. There are neighborhoods that are right next to toxic waste dumps, brownfield sites, ash dumps, and sadly all of these sites are in incomes of lower socioeconomic incomes that are straddled with poverty and drugs and abuse, and not really any community voice. And so that is the saddest part, that these children played at toxic waste sites, they went to school on top of them, they drank the water from wells. As my particular client was, that you and I have been talking about, living homeless, sleeping in the ash fields because there's no place else to go, because he's been thrown out by his mother's boyfriend. So all of that conspires and works on the brain such that it makes the child more susceptible to peer influence or older influence or following behavior. In other words, not really being a leader but following a crowd. Impulsivity, and the abuse, the physical abuse and the emotional abuse was just tragic. I will say that almost all of these kids, and I represent all of them in Duval County and a couple in Nassau County, but for the most part, the ones in Duval County all came from just horribly tragic backgrounds, horribly abusive and traumatic childhoods. So it's very difficult. It's an uphill battle for a 13 or 15-year-old that's thrown into an adult prison for a life sentence. It's really tantamount to a death sentence.